You're the mom that's always done everything for your kids to make their life magical and their childhood magical, but in the process, you've made all the other parents mad at you. Then this video is for you. I'm going to chat about my experience. My kids are now 17 and 20, and I did all of that and experienced all of that in the junior years of my kids and the time that they were in elementary school. To give you a bit of background, my kids are now 17 and 20. I have a 17-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter. And I would say the biggest lessons learned were during the time with my daughter and her time in elementary school. And I'm not sure what it is, why women are the way they are and why girls are the way they are. Well, actually, I do know it's because of their mothers. My experiences with the two kids from opposite sexes, my son, completely different experience, daughter, horrible experience. And I think, again, it's important for people to realize that people do things for a reason, and you don't know what those reasons are. So for me, I wanted my kids' childhood to be completely different than the way mine was. And I'll share a peer video I did recently about low effort families. And I came from a low effort mother and sister. And, I wouldn't say that I had, a great childhood. I mean, it wasn't horrible. But coming from that environment with very low effort, where there was no effort put on anything, birthdays, Christmas, holidays, nothing, no effort whatsoever. I wanted my kids' experiences to be completely different. I wanted to change that cycle. And I think really a lot of people are very insecure. I think there are a lot of people out there that are low effort parents, family members. And when you start doing things that are different than them, it's almost like you're showing them up, and they don't like that. And this is the experience that I had with my daughter. We were at a small school, maybe only 450 kids, all through elementary school for her. And I always planned themed birthday parties. I always planned birthday parties. I would do little Christmas parties for the kids, Halloween parties, and I would invite as many of the kids in the class as I could. And then as the friendships developed, we kept a smaller group, like maybe 10 kids would be invited to the parties. But we always did themed parties. When we would do the parties, my in-laws, they would make these beautiful, elaborate themed cakes for us. So everything, I guess, to other people was over the top. But to me, it was just, a party with a theme. And I loved doing that because I'm a very creative person. And I loved being able to, pull together a theme and carry it through for the entire party. So more and more, every year I was doing these parties. And then I remember the one day when some kids were getting dropped off, the first thing out of the mother's mouth when she came to the door was, "Oh my God, how are we going to compete with this?" And I was never competing with anyone. I was just doing something for my kids and for their kids because their kids were all invited. And so that right there said to me, okay, this is a problem because obviously these mothers are very insecure and feeling very threatened. And I think that was the other thing too. They felt extremely threatened because, their kids would come over here and they would see how things were done over here. We're a very involved family. And then they would go home and maybe their kids would say, well, their family does this and their family does that. And that caused a lot of hostility with the other mothers. And what was happening is obviously these kids, the parents would all be talking at home, and then the kids would overhear what was being said, and then some things are being repeated at school. And this is how I started to become more and more aware of the problem. But, I didn't want to stop doing what I was doing because parents were insecure and threatened, because I was doing what I was doing for my kids and for them to be happy. But in the end, it just ended up causing issues with the girls as well and their friendships because, as always, the mothers got involved. So I would, when I look back now, I wouldn't not do what I did as far as hosting parties and including people. I would have done that. I would have continued to do that. But I think I wouldn't have tried as much to be friends with the parents. You have to be very selective about who you want to bring into your life. And another video that I just recently did about, bringing people into your home, which I'll tag here, and why it's important to be very selective. But I think, the more that people, again, know what you do, they see what you have, how you do things, they get very threatened and very jealous. And that was another big problem that I found with the girls, the competition and the jealousy. And when these kids were little, I'm the type of person that I'm always thinking about the future. I didn't want to jeopardize relationships that they might have in the future. It's like, oh, well, they're going to go to high school together, and then maybe they're going to go to university together. But, when I look back now, because again, my daughter, she's 20 years old, none of these kids are even friends anymore. So you put so much effort into trying to cultivate these friendships and also cultivating friendships with the parents. I mean, it fizzles out anyways because in elementary school, these kids are put together because and they're friends because they have to be. They're in a small space in a small school, and then when they get to university, sorry, well, they get to high school, they start to branch out and they make new friends anyways. And then by the time university rolls around, none of them are even speaking at this point because they're different and different personalities. They branch out, they make new friends. So my advice is do not put so much effort on trying to be friends with the parents, and forcing the friendships with the kids. And I wouldn't say that I forced friendships with the kids. It's just I put too much effort into, doing play dates and inviting kids to come places with us. I think women in general, we have our own, trauma from, failed relationships and friendships, and we don't want that for our daughters. And we try so hard to make sure that they have friends and they have, a good time and they're going out and they get invited. And we internalize and take things personally when they're not invited or they're not included. So I would say that as well is just let things naturally evolve and friendships organically happen. Do not get involved so much. And I mean, my biggest advice is do not get involved with the parents, because again, as soon as those parents see what you have, what you're doing, they feel threatened, they're insecure. And, it shouldn't be this way, but parents, their biases and their opinions, they get trickled down to their kids, and it does affect the kids' friendships. So back to my daughter, what ended up happening, it just snowballed from like junior kindergarten, senior, every year it just continued to snowball. I would say like the resentment and the jealousy from the parents. And I started to, simmer down a little bit on the parties and the events that I was planning, which, I continued to still do them, but I invited less kids. And it really bothers me now when I think back that, I had to change who I was as a person and who I was as a parent just to make these people happy so that they wouldn't be, so that it wouldn't trickle down and they wouldn't be mean to my daughter, but they still were. So then by the time we hit grade 5 for her, there was a lot of nonsense going on and everything stemmed from the parents. A lot of like excluding and bullying and all kinds of stuff. So we had no choice but to pull her out of that school, actually. So she continued on, and in grade 6, it got even worse. It started in grade 5. By grade 6, it got really bad. And this may be normal for a lot of kids, but I think with us, because of the situation with the parents and them being the way they were, it just was exasperated. So grade 6, she hung on. There was so much nonsense going on. And then finally, we just pulled her out of the school and we moved her to a different school for grade 7 and 8. We didn't even tell the school. The grade 7 first day of school rolled around and they were calling, wondering where she was. She's not there. She's not coming back. We didn't tell anyone. We unfollowed all of the people. She unfollowed all of the friends. We blocked everyone. And she just went to a new school, started fresh, and that's the best thing we could have done. And then when she started high school, she also went to a brand new school, starting fresh with none of those kids. Again, the best thing we could have done. So to summarize in a bit of a nutshell, based on my experiences, I would say, do not try so hard to be friends with the parents, because those friendships with those kids will probably fizzle out over the years. Just focus on doing things for your kids. And of course, everyone wants to have parties. Everybody wants to have a birthday party. Let your kids guide. Let them tell you who they want to invite. And if it doesn't mean that it's the whole class or it's half the class, then so be it. Like someone has to set the precedence, that it's okay that not everyone's invited, and that, it's more about who their actual friends are. And, that's part of life, that not everyone gets invited. Don't worry about everybody else's kids. Just worry about your own kids. Spend that time together as a family instead of inviting, kids' friends because you feel like they need that. They don't. If they have siblings, that is their built in friend. And the time will pass so fast, and they're going to grow up, and then you're going to wish that you had more of that time with them, and that the siblings had more time together, especially if your kids are playing in sports, or they have extracurricular activities. That's already time away from the family. Keep whatever time you can just for your own family. Don't worry about everyone else. And also, like I said, these friendships, most of them will fizzle out. Some of them will last, but most of them will fizzle out. Don't put so much effort into, trying to make it happen. Just let the kids navigate on their own. Let them choose their own friends. Let them decide who wants to be included, who doesn't want to be included. But as a parent, you need to set the ground rules that, your family comes first. And if you're going to go anywhere or spend time with anyone, you're going to do it with your siblings, because those are the true friends that they're going to have their entire lives. This video, I'm rambling again, like I usually do, but let's get on to my son. So my son's 17. Boys are completely different in how they think. And I learned so many lessons from my daughter that I was not going to repeat with my son. And with my son, I stayed completely out of the picture. And this is another thing I forgot to mention, is that we had very flexible work schedules. So when our kids were little, we were always able to go on every single field trip, every parent teacher, every Christmas concert, you name it. And I always felt bad, of course, for the other parents that couldn't do that. So I would be taking photos of everybody else's kids, and I'd send them to them, and and for what? That got me nowhere. I took the time to do this for them because I felt bad. And it's almost like they still hated me because I was there all the time. Between my husband and I, we were always going to the events and the field trips and the this and the that. And, people would say, okay, they're just the perfect family, the perfect parents that can do everything. But that's not the case. It's just that we were lucky that we had flexibility with our jobs. But also, it doesn't mean that we didn't have to take vacation time, balance our schedules and switch our schedules and do whatever. We did what we had to do to make sure that we were there. And again, like, I would take photos and send them to the parents, and I'm sorry that you can't be here, but what can I do? Can I help? They still hated me. So anyway, so with my son, my husband kind of took the lead with him, and he was the one going to most of the field trips with him. And I just stood back and, kind of stayed out of the picture. So, and the same with birthday parties. We continued to do the themed birthday parties. And with him, I think we would let him choose how many friends he wanted to invite. I did put no pressure whatsoever on who was invited, how many were invited. And that seemed to work out a lot better than with my daughter. And guys, he's 17 now, they just think so much differently than girls. They don't overanalyze things. They don't hold on to grudges. They don't make a big deal about things. It's not that deep, my son says. Because to them, it really isn't. I think girls are just so hyper fixated on analyzing everything. And I mean, I'm a woman, I'm guilty of that too. But for the boys, it's so different. We had such a different experience with him. Yeah, I did not want to repeat what happened with our daughter. And for our son, he did stay at that same school all the way through till grade 8. And then from there, he went on to high school with all of his friends. And there's really been no issues. And I've had zero contact with any of the parents from his friends. I just refuse to get involved with any of them. It's so hard navigating being a parent. And, if you've experienced these things, let me know in the comments, how you handled situations. My advice is to be a silent parent. Stay in the background. Do not put so much effort into trying to be friends with the parents, trying to cultivate the relationships and the friendships. Let the kids just do this, naturally. These kids, their friendships may last, they may not. And in the end, the only one it hurts is the kids, because unfortunately, the drama always starts at the top with the parents, and it does trickle down to the kids. I don't know why it's like that, but it is. People are like that. So just be the silent parent. Still do what you can for your kids, but do not get so involved in their friends, the friends' parents, and all of that nonsense. Just Stay true to your own family values, what your kids want. Listen to your kids. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you made it to the very end. And if you did, I really appreciate you. And don't forget to watch some of my other videos that I've tagged here in this video. I have a lot to say. I have a lot of life experience, and it's not all good. So I hope that you've learned something from me today. And if you did make it to the end, thank you for watching. Bye for now.